Okay, good morning and welcome. Let's have a word of prayer here before we get started. Father, thank you for your love to us, for this beautiful day and a chance to be together and worship you. Lord, I ask that we would just be challenged here as we look at your word and just look at what it means to live a life that is just what you want us to live and what you want us to put our energy into. Help us to just listen to your voice in our lives and be challenged and grow through that. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so to start with here, some of where this message came from was through something that Brandon had mentioned. I believe it was last week in the message. He had, or maybe it was in a little bit of the sharing time afterward. He had, I don't know if anybody remembers. He talked about he had seen a poster somewhere of this chart, and it had basically. I'm gonna put it up here. Basically has, and I hope y'all can kind of see it. But what this is a kind of a chart of your life, and this one has a square for each week of your life, and that's if you live to 90 years old. So they all fit in a paper. I don't know, it's a little bit hard to see maybe from way in the back, but what it is, that's actually you can buy them on Amazon. It's a week life calendar is what it's called. So you have a box for each week of your life, and it goes, that's age 10, 20, 30. You can kind of see the numbers on down, so you can kind of figure out how old you are and basically think about how many boxes would be shaded in. And that's if you live to 90, which is, I would say, that's above average for people in the US. But it kind of helps you think about, life is sort of a finite thing here on this earth, and what am I using my life for? What am I using the time here that God gave me? And then I also was thinking about, I was just driving down the road, and I thought about this a bit, and then I thought about something that my wife says sometimes. She'll sometimes maybe her mom or one of her brothers or something will put a video on. Maybe they're taking their nephew or niece or something for a tractor ride or a four-wheeler ride or something, and Hannah will say, "Boy, it looks like they're just living their best life." And so that's what I want to talk about this morning. Get this plugged in here. Hopefully getting there. Let's try this again. Apologize for the technical difficulties.
Go down to PowerPoint.
What's that?
Click on PowerPoint.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so it's showing up here, but not. Try this. Showing now? Okay. Okay. All right, so that's the title of the message I'd like to talk about this morning. And are you living your best life? And I'm just maybe try to think about it as far as, excuse me. Just maybe a child that's kind of doing what he's meant to do, maybe you might say. He's a little 3 or 4 year old child they're learning a lot, but they're having fun. They don't have really any responsibilities, and they're fairly innocent. I mean, of course, a child has its issues, things it needs to learn, but a child is innocent and he's just doing what God created him to do. And so I want us to kind of think about that in light of living for God. And so think about that calendar, think about this line, and I have a couple questions that I'm not necessarily going to ask that you answer, but I want you to all think about. Well, I want you to answer them. Not necessarily looking for an answer right here, but the first one is, how do you want people to remember you, like after you're gone? And then 2, in your words, how would you describe living your best life? So if you were to be able to sketch up exactly what you would want your life to look like, how would that be? Is it exactly the way it is now, or are there things that you would like to be different? And then 3, in 15 years, or you could say 5 years or 50 years, do you want to be the same person you are today? Why or why not? And then what are you going to do about it? So just a couple questions there I'd like to think about, and maybe we're not necessarily looking for an answer right here this morning, but maybe you can think about them this afternoon and think about how you would answer those questions. So in thinking about what does it mean to live your best life, we are going to go to the book of Ecclesiastes, and sometimes this book kind of gets the idea is that it's a lot of gloom and doom and meaninglessness and all that, but I think we can learn something from Solomon. So I would like to read actually the first 2 chapters, and so it'll take a little bit of time, but just follow along with me and try to follow along with what Solomon is talking about here and experiencing, and kind of what he has to say. So I'll try to read relatively quickly to keep it moving here. Ecclesiastes 1. These are the words of the teacher, King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. Everything is meaningless, and I'm reading in the New Living Translation. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself. It has been done. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now. I, the teacher, was king of Israel, and I lived in Jerusalem. I devoted myself to searching for understanding and to explore by wisdom everything being done under heaven. I soon discovered that God has dealt a tragic existence to the human race. I observed everything going on under the sun, and really, it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind. What is wrong cannot be made right. What is missing cannot be recovered. I said to myself, look, I'm wiser than any of the kings who ruled in Jerusalem before me. I have greater wisdom and knowledge than any of them. So I set out to learn everything from wisdom to madness and folly. But I learned firsthand that pursuing all this is like chasing the wind. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. Chapter 2. I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks. filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness. For who can do this better than I, the king? I thought, wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but the fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and the foolish share the same fate. Both will die. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what's the value of all my wisdom? This is all so meaningless, for the wise and the foolish both die. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. So I came to hate life, because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. And who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I've gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill. They must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. So I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that the pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat and enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes that wealth away and gives it to those who please him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. And I usually like to read a long passage like that, but I'm trying to just get the picture here of just Solomon looking at his life and kind of trying to experiment, like what does this world have to offer? Like, let's try everything basically and see what can I find fulfillment in. And yeah, he says there's nothing, but I'd like to just kind of quick go over a list here, and I would like y'all to kind of name the things. What are the things that Solomon talked about that he said are meaningless? Y'all can just name them out. What did you hear there?
Wealth.
Okay, and that could be, and he talked about a couple of different things. So wealth, possessions, big homes. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Hard work.
And these are all things like that you can look kind of like anywhere and see people chasing these things, right? Like, okay. What else?
He said in verse 18 of chapter 1, the greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. So even the pursuit of wisdom.
Or like education, maybe, like pursuing, yeah. Maybe with that knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, could maybe somewhat go together. I would just look at that now like somebody pursuing a life of education and learning. Okay, what else? There's a few more in here.
His work. Maybe that was already said. It says, verse 18, I hated all my labor which I had taken.
Okay. Anything else? Pleasure, so like a lot of different things there. It was, you can maybe call it, he talked about laughter, so maybe just, I don't know, trying to be a comedian or yeah, like do some people try to, when life is feeling hard, you know, maybe we just try to laugh about everything and be kind of silly. Okay, and then also with pleasure, I mean, he talked about his wives, talked about alcohol or wine, chasing that, trying to see if there was fulfillment in that. Is there anything else? I think that's most of.
Food, talks about verse 24, you should eat and drink.
Okay.
Better than that, and that wasn't good either.
He talked about planting vineyards and making pools, and I guess you'd call that landscaping.
So Solomon, he kind of said, like, basically the whole first 2 chapters there are just, all this stuff is kind of meaningless. Like, there's nothing here on this earth that you can just put your heart into that is going to bring fulfillment, until he gets to the end of chapter 2 and says that you have to realize that these things that could be considered good, these pleasures come from God. There's nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. And so I guess in kind of conclusion there, I have, you know, his conclusion is to enjoy the provisions from God, work hard, and please Him, and that will bring fulfillment in life. But kind of to continue with this thought of, yeah, just looking at what we're not all. I mean, none of us are facing death right now. None of us have a disease where that we know we could probably die the next week, or, you know, it doesn't immediately seem like we could be at death's door, if that makes sense. Obviously, any of us could die today, but maybe we're not thinking about it right at hand here. But I'd like to read. There was a hospice nurse that put together a list of 5 different of the biggest regrets that she's heard from people as they're getting ready to die. And so I'll read them, and then maybe there was some of them that had a little bit more of an explanation. But the first one, she said, one of the biggest regrets of somebody on their deathbed was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected from me. So basically just doing what was in their heart, and not, they felt like they were worried too much about what people thought about them. The second one was from a lot of men. It says, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I had spent less time just working crazy hours and spent more time, you know, doing the important things with my family, spending time with them. The third one was, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings more. Fourth one was, I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. And then the fifth one is, I wish I had let myself be happier. And then she kind of mentioned with this one, when they're at their deathbed, they look back on their life and realize that happiness was a choice, that their circumstances, it was more of a choice of deciding to be happy than it was just their circumstances making it be that way. So just a couple things there to think about. And I also I wanted to look up a few the last words or testimonies of people that were on their deathbed that it's kind of interesting. So Queen Elizabeth I, back in the 1600s, she said, all of my possessions for a moment of time. So she was the Queen of England, and she would have traded everything to have some more time being alive. Winston Churchill, he said, this is kind of an interesting one. He said, "I'm ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is ready for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter." Bob Marley, which he was a famous singer, he said, "Money can't buy life." So just, yeah, these people kind of looking at different things. I have another little sort of an excerpt from, this is from Steve Jobs. So he was like one of the co-founders of Apple, just an incredibly wealthy guy. He was a billionaire, I believe, and he had some things to say about his life, just as he was kind of on his deathbed in the hospital, I believe. He said, "I reached the pinnacle of success in the business world. In others' eyes, my life is an epitome of success. However, aside from work, I have little joy. In the end, wealth is only a fact of life that I'm accustomed to. At this moment, lying on the sick bed and recalling my whole life, I realize that all the recognition and wealth that I took so much pride in have paled and become meaningless in the face of impending death. In the darkness, I look at the green lights from the life-supporting machines and hear the humming mechanical sounds. I can feel the breath of the god of death drawing closer. Now I know when we have accumulated sufficient wealth to last our lifetime, we should pursue other matters that are unrelated to wealth. Should be something that is more important. Perhaps relationships, perhaps art, perhaps a dream from younger days. Non-stop pursuing of wealth will only turn a person into a twisted being, just like me." God gave us the senses to let us feel the love in everyone's heart, not the illusions brought about by wealth. The wealth I have won in my life, I cannot bring with me. What I can bring is only the memories precipitated by love. That's the true riches which will follow you, accompany you, giving you strength and light to go on. Love can travel 1,000 miles. Life has no limit. Go where you want to go. Reach the height you want to reach. It is all in your heart and in your hands. What is the most expensive bed in the world? The sick bed. You can employ someone to drive the car for you, make money for you, but you cannot have someone to bear the sickness for you. Material things lost can be found, but there is one thing that can never be found when it is lost: life. When a person goes into the operating room, he will realize that there is one book that he has yet to finish reading, the book of healthy life. Whichever stage in life we are at right now, with time, we will face the day when the curtain comes down. Treasure love for your family, love for your spouse, love for your friends. Treat yourself well, cherish others. And I found that just kind of interesting. I didn't do a lot of research, but it kind of sounded like he was just a really hard-driving business guy that maybe wasn't the nicest person to get along with, but he spent his life in the pursuit of building a really successful business and making a lot of money in the process. So in thinking about that, we've looked some at maybe what it means to not live your best life. But how does Jesus define the best life? Are there any thoughts that come to mind when you've been thinking about this question? What might you say Jesus' definition of that question is? I'll open it up in just a second here.
I came not to be served, but to serve.
He said if you are trying to save your life, you'll lose it. If you're losing it, you'll save it.
And with both of those have to do with having a focus on other people, and it's interesting. All that notice that gave those 5 examples, all of those things had to do with people and relationships, not wishing they had made more money or had a better house or car. It was all kind of came back to people. anything else what might Jesus define as the best life or a life well lived? Okay, well, we're going to look at a few here, and Jesus gave us some words that we can maybe compare to how we're living our life now and see, does this line up with what Jesus says, the way we should be living to have a fulfilled life. So I have a number of references, so I'm going to hand these out. There's quite a few, so if you would, most people would be able to take one, I think, and then read it when it's your turn. But John 10:10, somebody take that. Julie, take John 10:10. Okay, Matthew 16:25. Dad, take that. Matthew 5:13-16. Weston. Okay. Matthew 6:14-15. Okay, Josh. Matthew 6:19-21. Got that one. Matthew 7:24-27. Get that. Okay. Matthew 7:13. Maria. And then Grandma, you can take Matthew 7:15-18. And then Matthew 7:21-23. Somebody get that one. Close. Okay. All right. John 10:10. If you want to, Julie, you want to go ahead and I'll read the reference off, and then as soon as you have it, you can go ahead and read it. But try to read nice and loud so that pick up.
The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life.
And I believe the King James says, "I've come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly," I believe. We talked about that some this morning, about how the life that Christ gives us now is an abundant life, and it's living. It's not some dead teaching that we're following. Christ is the definition of life. Okay, number 2, Matthew 16:25.
For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it.
And you had mentioned that one earlier. It's about giving our lives. It's that's what Jesus said it's about. Okay, the third one, Matthew 5:13-16.
Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt hath lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
Okay, and so you can just ask, how's my salt and light doing? Am I being salty, and am I being a light to the people that are around me? Okay, Matthew 6:14-15.
For if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
Okay, Jesus said that to have a strong relationship with the Father, we have to forgive people when they do wrong, and He forgives us according to how we forgive them. So all of these are kind of like maybe if you're looking for a spot to grow in, I think, at least for me, there's a lot of these that I can grow in, but maybe you can kind of like compare to how you're doing in these areas and see if maybe you need to grow. Okay, Matthew 6:19-21.
Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where thieves do not break through and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Okay. Yeah. Where's your treasure? Where's your energy going? Where are you storing things? Good. Okay. Matthew 7:24-27.
Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that hears these sayings of mine and doeth them not should be likened to a foolish man which had built his house upon the sand. The rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon the house, and it fell. Great was the fall of it.
Okay. I had, last time I shared, we talked about what are you building on? How's your foundation? So yeah, what are you there along with where are you storing up your treasure? You know, what are you building your life on? And is the material you're using to build your life, is it good? Is it high quality? Okay. The next one, Matthew 7:13.
Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in.
And with that, are you do you find that you're walking the narrow way, or you know, we're part of a church here, but are we is your life, I guess, looking quite a bit different than the people that are heading down the Broadway? Something to think about there. Matthew 7:15-18.
Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit.
Okay. And Jesus, he's talking there about, you know, identifying false prophets, but we can look at that in our own lives. How are we? How's our fruit production going? Is it really good stuff that people want to eat in a sense? Yeah, we can tell what's inside of us by the quality of our fruit. And then Matthew 7:21-23.
Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, and never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity.
Yeah, these people that said they had done these things, they had done a lot of maybe good things, but they weren't being obedient to God's word and obeying the commands that He's given. So, I feel like there's each of these verses could have been a message in itself, but I wanted to kind of just go down through and look at each of these things briefly and maybe a list to say, hey, what am I needing some growth in? And then, just I guess kind of here in closing, the challenge that I would like to leave is, are you living victoriously and intentionally with each day? Because we don't have very much time, really. When you look at this chart, my life on there is about a third filled in if I'm going to live to 90, and so that means I have potentially another 2/3, and that's kind of unique to think about. Some of you are maybe that chart is a lot more filled in, but what are we doing with the time that we have here is the challenge that I would like to leave. And if you see things that need to change, or that you don't want to get to the end of your life and say, oh, I wish I would have done something different, because at that point you don't really have the choice to do anything else. It's kind of in the books already. So that is a challenge. And then I have a couple more, one more verse I'd like to read, and then a couple more last words from a few people. Ecclesiastes 12:13. This is kind of getting your, right at the end of the book. Solomon says, Ecclesiastes 12:13, he says, that's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad. In all this search for meaning and fulfillment, it's actually quite simple. Fear God, please him, live to please him, and do his commandments. And that's a lot of the things that we talked about. Excuse me. And then I'd like to read two guys. This was one of them was his last words. Stephen, when he was being stoned, he said, were some of the last words, I think he maybe said something right after this, but he said, lay not this sin to their charge, to his people, to the people that were stoning him. He was forgiving them. That was like his last arch cry. He cared about these people as they were killing him. And then Paul, and I don't think these were necessarily his last words, but it was maybe kind of finished one of his letters with this. He said, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. And that's just to be able to be looking at the end of life and to say that. I think that should be each of our desires. So, thank you for your help with reading the verses, and again, just look at those questions and think about how you would answer them. It was a challenge for me, and I'd like to pass that along to you as well. So let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll close. Father, thank you for today, and thank you for this message. God, I just ask that you would help us to each live lives with the time that you gave us here. Just use our energy and gifts and everything that you've given us to build your kingdom and to bring you glory. Help us to just live a life that we can get to the end where we're looking at death and that we can look back on our life and say that we have fought a good fight and we've lived to please you. Help us to be intentional about that every day and bring things into our minds that would help us remember that. We just commit this day to you. In Jesus' name.